So what if I told you there's a simple way to break down any complex process, whether you're mentoring, managing a project, or tackling your own goals? Well, after spending over a decade of simplifying complex systems as a software engineer, I developed a framework that can turn chaos into clarity. And in this video, I'll share it with you. To truly simplify, we need to start thinking like a beginner. So one of the keys to simplifying a complex process in the beginning is to unlearn what you already know. There's a cognitive bias that might be sabotaging your efforts without you even realizing it. And one of the most common types of cognitive bias is the curse of knowledge. But what does that even mean, and how does it stop us from simplifying our complex ideas? Well, the curse of knowledge is a mental block that happens when someone who knows a lot about a subject finds it difficult to explain, forgetting what it was like first starting out. There's a hidden assumption that others understand things the way you do, making it tricky to communicate clearly. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine you've been planning weekend getaways for years. You know all the ins and outs, from the best destinations and hidden gems to the perfect packing lists and booking strategies. But when you try to share this knowledge with a friend who's never planned a trip before, something aggravating happens. You might skip over basic steps or use terms that they don't understand, not because you're trying to confuse them, but because your expertise makes it much harder to explain things. This can lead to forgetting crucial steps or overwhelming both you and your friend during the planning process. So how do we break free from this curse? The answer lies in something deceptively simple, but incredibly powerful: adopting a beginner's mindset. This means approaching the topic as if you're encountering it for the very first time, no matter how much you think you already know. When you let go of your assumptions and see things through fresh eyes, you unlock new perspectives. Suddenly, the complexities that once seemed overwhelming start to break down a bit into manageable pieces. Let's go back to a weekend getaway example. Imagine again you're planning a weekend getaway, but soon you're juggling multiple tabs, comparing destinations, hunting for the best accommodations, mapping out activities, and trying to coordinate it all without missing a beat. In the future, you want someone else to do this, but you have to teach them how. Before you know it, trying to explain all of this makes planning a relaxing trip feel more like an overwhelming jigsaw puzzle from hell. Here's the thing. That simple shift can help you cut through a lot of the noise and bring everything that's really important into focus. It's a way to make the planning process not just easier, but smoother and more manageable. I mean, the big picture isn't fully clear most of the time, 9 times out of 10. We can start by wading through the information we do know, and as we work through that, new information, new questions, and potential solutions are going to naturally come to the surface. And when you do this, you'll start to see connections that weren't obvious before. But the goal here isn't to finalize anything, isn't to make steps, it's to uncover possibilities and increase our familiarity with the subject matter. Once you've done some of that uncovering, how do you make sense of it all? How do you take the tangled web of ideas and turn it into something clear and actionable? Now that we started thinking with the beginner's mindset, letting go of assumptions and seeing things with fresh eyes, it's time to take the next step, defining your goals. Before moving forward with anything else, ask yourself, what am I aiming to accomplish, and what does success look like? Start by writing down your primary goals. This gives you clear direction. Knowing exactly what you're working towards simplifies decision making and ensures that every step you take serves your bigger picture. For example, let's return to our weekend getaway. The main goals might be simple: relaxation and adventure. But by writing them down, you make sure that every decision, from choosing a destination to planning activities, aligns with those objectives. Defining your goals early helps you stay focused and avoid getting bogged down in unnecessary details. It also ensures that every task supports your overall vision. With those established, how can we take this jumbled pile of knowledge and start turning it into something coherent? All right, we've identified some essential components for our weekend getaway, and we've also defined some of our goals. The next thing is to bring these things together in a sensical way. And we can do that through effective organization. Effective organization turns a scattered list of tasks into a coherent strategy. It ensures that each step flows logically into the next, preventing bottlenecks and confusion. So let's dive into 3 methods that can streamline your planning process. Method 1, chronological organization. Arranging tasks in an order that they need to be completed. This method is ideal when your tasks follow a natural sequence. For our weekend getaway, this might mean booking flights first, then reserving accommodations, and finally planning activities once we've nailed down our destination. Method 2, task grouping. Categorizing tasks based on a type or function. This is helpful when your tasks cover different areas that don't need to be done in a specific order. We can group our trip tasks into travel, accommodation, and activities. Under travel, we could have booking flights and arranging transportation, and accommodation includes hotels or rentals, and activities covering sightseeing or entertainment plans. And lastly here, we have priority-based organization where you focus on tasks based on their importance or urgency. And this is crucial when some tasks need immediate attention. If we're traveling during peak season, securing accommodations becomes a top priority. Alternatively, booking flights early can save money and guarantee availability. Now imagine how satisfying it's going to feel seeing your overwhelming task list transform into a clear, actionable plan. In reality, you'll often see a combination of these methods work together best. For instance, we could have the priorities and also the timeline together for our weekend getaway. Think about your next project or personal plan and try using these methods to see how they make the process more efficient and less overwhelming. You can use visual tools to help free up your mind space, whether you're using a whiteboard, sticky notes, or a digital app. Seeing everything laid out visually helps you spot connections and potential issues quickly. Now that we've organized our tasks, how do we make sure everything runs smoothly when it's time to execute? Mark Twain is often quoted saying in a letter to his friend, "I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead." This highlights a key point. Achieving simplicity takes effort. It's not about doing less, it's about focusing on what really matters. So how do we apply this principle to our trip planning? Let's use 2 practical steps to simplify. Step 1, prioritize the essentials. Focus on what's necessary, identify core tasks or components that will drive your project forward. For example, the essentials are booking flights, securing accommodations, and selecting key activities. Extras like exploring quirky restaurants can wait. Step 2 is combine or eliminate tasks. Ask yourself, can any of these steps be merged? Are there any redundancies? For example, instead of booking flights and hotels separately, consider using a service that bundles them together, saving both time and maybe getting a nice discount as well. But even the best plan can fall apart if it's not communicated effectively. Clear communication ensures your intentions are understood. Here are 4 simple principles that can transform how you share your ideas. 1 is to keep it simple. Use clear, straightforward language and avoid jargon or overly complex explanations that can confuse others. So be very intentional. In our example, instead of saying we're going to be arriving in LAX, maybe we say we're going to arrive in Los Angeles when we get there on the airplane, and the airport's short form name is LAX. Break it into digestible pieces. Don't overwhelm your audience with too much information at once, and present details in small, manageable chunks so they can absorb each point before moving on. In our example, we can start with an overview of the trip, then break down the details, accommodations, activities, and transportation, one at a time. And this is closely tied to the next tip: use visuals to reinforce concepts. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Diagrams, maps, and images can all convey complex information quickly and clearly. For our example, instead of listing all the places we might want to visit, use a map to highlight key destinations. This provides an easy to understand reference for everyone. Number 4, tailor your explanation to your audience. Know your audience, customize your message based on what they value most. If your friend loves adventure, emphasize the exciting activities you've planned. For someone who prefers relaxation, highlight downtime and spa appointments. And here's a tip for feedback. Instead of asking, "Does that make sense?" try saying, "What are your thoughts on this?" This is going to encourage dialogue and show that you value their input with open-ended questions. That's a lot, and we've come a long way, and there's just one final step: reviewing and refining. Just like a masterpiece, the final touches can make all the difference. Before wrapping up, there's one important step that can elevate your entire experience. That's a review. A review can take your project from good to great, ensuring nothing important is missed, and sets the stage for a smooth execution. Revisit the key steps. Go through your plan with fresh eyes again, like we discussed with the beginner's mindset, and approach it as if you're seeing it for the first time. Is everything clear? Are the steps necessary? For our weekend getaway, double check each booking, flights, accommodations, activities, and ensure nothing's missing and there's no unintentional overlaps. If you're explaining something complex, review your outline to make sure each of the points are clear and essential for understanding. Check for consistency. Ensure all the elements are consistent. Do they serve the goals defined for success? Consistency keeps everything on track and avoids confusion. Get feedback. If you can, seek feedback from someone else. A fresh pair of eyes can help spot things you may have missed and offer suggestions on how to improve. If there are holes, they'll find them naturally and pretty quickly, as they won't have the cognitive bias, the curse of knowledge that we talked about earlier. And practice your delivery. With everything tightened up, practice going through your explanation. Hey, congrats, you made it. Now you got the tools to simplify, organize, and refine any complex process. All that's left now is to execute. That could be in the form of making some documentation, giving a speech, or explaining why you deserve a raise. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you'd like to learn more, you can see why I left the tech industry, for now, over here. See you next time.